wow, what do you know? It's time for the Pocket Knife Show. Hey, it's Mike on the mic again for another episode of the Pocket Knife Podcast. I've been preaching through the book of Luke on Sunday mornings since July 6, 2023. I have less than 3 chapters to go. Yeah, it's January 2025, and I've been taking it slow. And I've had to stop here and there for other messages and themes, but I think I'm going to get it done soon. Well, a week or so ago, I covered the story of Jesus sending Peter and John to get ready for the Passover feast. Luke's account, found in Luke 22, 7-13, includes a narrative element which makes Jesus' divinity pop. Only one other gospel writer includes this same detail. Mark's account is so similar to Luke's that many believe Luke used Mark as one of his sources. Seriously, go read Mark 14, 12-16. You'll think you're reading Luke 22, 7-13. Well, I hope you're curious enough now to pay careful attention as I read Luke's narrative. See if you notice the I'm God moment. Here we go. Again, this is Luke 22, 7-13. Then came the day of unleavened bread on which the Passover lamb had to be sacrificed. Jesus sent Peter and John, saying, "Go and make preparations for us to eat the Passover." "Where do you want us to prepare for it?" they asked. He replied, "As you enter the city, a man carrying a jar of water will meet you. Follow him to the house that he enters, and say to the owner of the house, 'The teacher asks, where is the guest room where I may eat the Passover with my disciples?' He will show you a large room upstairs, all furnished. Make preparations there." They left and found things just as Jesus had told them. So they prepared the Passover. Let's start with the completely unmiraculous. Jesus asked 2 of his followers, Peter and John, to go and make preparations for the Passover meal. Seems pretty mundane. It's what everybody in town was doing. All of Israel was getting ready for the holiday. The sheep had been chosen and had been cared for over the past few days. All yeast was out of house, out of mind. The knives for the slaughter were sharpened and ready for action at twilight. Perhaps a few fires for roasting were already lit. If you want the details of the Passover celebration and what it remembers, check out Exodus 10 through 12. The original story reveals God's power over life and death and shows his willingness to rescue those condemned to die if they will in faith do as he commands. Back to the story in Luke. Jesus says go, and Peter and John ask, where? Jesus answers in the most incredible way. He tells them to go to the city, and as they're entering, a guy with a jar in hand will meet them. Let's pause for a second to take this in. If I told you to go to Walmart and predicted accurately that a guy carrying a case of Pepsi would meet you as you walked through the door, you'd be astonished. Either that or you'd think I'd told the guy with a sugar and caffeine problem ahead of time to watch for you so he could fulfill my prophecy. I think the former is what took place here in Luke. Jesus, because he was God's Son in constant communication with the maker and knower of all things, his Father, knew exactly when the right man would be walking into the city. He knew ahead of the actual meetup that Peter and John would arrive at the city limits at the same time as the jar-carrying servant, and they would be able to follow him to the right house where they could make preparations for their Passover party. I know some have read this differently, but I can't make out how any other meaning is intended. Jesus had perhaps already made arrangements to use the room with the house's owner, but he hadn't told the guy to send a jar-carrying servant to the city limits at a certain time so Peter and John could follow him to the right spot. How could they have coordinated such a perfect meetup? No one had smartwatches in that day. Jesus didn't have Life 360 to spy on the servant's meanderings and time things close enough. My question to you is this then. Do you trust the knower of all things, past, present, and future? Do you trust him to see you through what he knows is coming your way? This story is, I think, meant to be a faith builder. It's meant to encourage trust in Jesus, and it does, doesn't it? Whatever happens today or tomorrow or the next day, though it might startle you, it doesn't surprise Jesus at all. It won't. It can't. He knows what's coming, and I believe he's preparing you to meet the challenge. He'll be with you, and he'll see you through. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or terrified because of your enemies or what might happen, for the Lord your God goes with you, and he will never leave you, nor forsake you.
Oh no, it's sad, I know we've come to the end of the show.
See you next time.